I finally, it was very important lessons learned during that time. Probably the most important one was you can't control everything in your life, right? And you gotta adapt very quickly and think of the long game, and things will get better.
Hey, Mansoor, great to have you on the show today. We've known each other for so many years, go way back, but really, it's great to have you because I want to have a conversation with you about you and how I followed your journey and really kind of learned from it and respect and admire the person you've become. So thank you for spending time with me today.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you having me. Thank you, Yusuf.
Mansoor, when it comes to your story, I really want to start at the beginning. You've done some spectacular things and admirable things, but really want to start when you and your family migrated from Pakistan to the United States. Tell me a little bit about that experience. Let's start there.
Sure. So, I was pretty young. I was about 8 years old, so I can tell you what I remember. I grew up in Karachi for the first 8 years of my life, and we were a struggling family, financially struggling. My parents were both teachers, and nothing, high
Very
end.
admirable, especially in Pakistan.
Admirable profession, but doesn't make doesn't provide the financial security you need,
Yeah.
especially in Pakistan. My dad always had a vision of us coming to the United States in the early '80s, and my uncle was already here from my mom's side, and so he sponsored us, and we made the move to Newark.
Newark,
Um,
New Jersey.
in Newark, New Jersey. We landed in JFK March 3rd or March 11th, 1983, and
Now
well, my uncle.
you have a great memory, but I got to remember you and I know each other since you were in high school, so I got to be careful in terms of what you remember because it's been decades of
Yeah.
lots of stuff we've done together. Anyway,
Lots of high school and
lots of
partying,
shenanigans.
lots of
Uh,
shenanigans. Uh,
so
yeah.
yeah, so you landed at JFK. What happened?
Uh-huh. So we landed at JFK. My uncle came to pick us up. I also remember just being enamored by the United States, and my brothers and I were in awe of the escalator. So I remember that, and we were waiting for my uncle to come pick us up, and we waited for a while. I remember, but it didn't matter because my brother and
New
I we
York
were just.
traffic.
Yeah, well, New York traffic, right? I also think his car got towed or something that day, but whatever. But we were going up and down the escalator. That's what I remember. I remember my brothers and I just being like, "This is a ride. This is like a free ride. This is like Great Adventure or something." And then we were just going up and down the escalator, and people were just looking at us like, "What are these kids doing?" But for us, it was just amazing, like these staircases that moved by themselves. Anyway, so then we got to New Jersey. That's where my uncle lived, uh, and I remember also the waking up the next morning and coming down the staircase and looking around the bend and seeing my cousins for the first time, who I'm very close to still. But yeah, that was our first, my first recollection of moving to the States.
Yeah, so like everybody, your parents struggled trying to find your footing. So you didn't Newark wasn't your final stop. You ended up doing other things, going other places. Because when you and I met, you were in Queens. So what
Yeah.
happened after Newark?
Yeah, so we moved around. My mom and dad were, they were trying to find any odd job that they could. We were in Newark, and my dad got a job as for some reason he got a job in Rochester. And I think back in those days it was like there weren't that many Pakistani people around, and so he knew someone who could get him a job in Rochester, some Pakistani person who some connection. And so he used to stock shelves at a grocery store up there. So he went to Rochester, was living with somebody, but he got a job as in the grocery store stocking shelves and doing whatever he needed to do. And I recall, and we lived in Newark because it was us plus another family and my grandmother. So it was a 2-bedroom place, and we had, oh man, I don't know, 4 adults, grandmother, and 6 kids in a two
And you
bedroom.
guys, you and your two brothers, you were living that situation, but you were just happy to be in America.
We were just happy. I
Escalator.
remember seeing my first snowfall. I remember going to my first elementary school. Uh, yeah, listen, it didn't matter to us what
Yeah.
the conditions were. We were also used to living in those conditions, right? We didn't have any servants or things like that in Pakistan, so we were
Yeah.
so used to.
It's amazing. Um, Earlier on, the first wave of South Asians that came to the United States, a lot of them were doctors and engineers because the United States was short in doctors and
Yeah,
engineers.
sure.
So we have this story, this experience of all these South Asians coming in. They're all engineers, doctors, and they do
Yeah,
well. And it's not true. A lot of us came in situations which were very different. However, it's cool that eventually you did become a doctor, and then
yeah.
so did some of your other siblings. But so tell me about the journey. You ended up in Queens eventually.
Yeah.
Your family is a nuclear family unit. What was your journey to med school?
Yeah, so Queens, look, I saw my parents struggling, right? But they worked hard. They were resilient, and the great thing about the United States, right? The American dream is there's mobility in social class if you work hard and just stay the course. And it's a long journey, right? And you stay the course. And so that's what my parents did. They went to work every day. My mom had two jobs in the beginning, and they moved us to Glen Oaks in Queens. And over there is where we really set up roots in 1986. And my brothers and I went to public school there, and we developed some great relationships with our friends that we're still friends with. And I came to high school, and I was trying to decide on what to do with myself, and what really drove me. And I was always interested in sciences and being a doctor. Of course, if you're Desi, it's like doctor, engineer, or
That's it.
but my parents, interestingly, never pushed us to be into medicine. But that was just something that came to me naturally. And I do have this natural inclination to want to improve.
You're a very curious person in general.
Yeah, and so I'm very curious. I like to learn new things, but it's got to be impactful to my society around me, and so that's what really drives me. But at that age, so being a physician was extremely important, and also at that age, I was starting to date somebody in high school, right? And that person was an amazing person whose family was amazing, and they really were inclusive, and it made me realize a couple of things. One is, hey, financial stability gives you a lot of opportunities. But the other thing it made me realize was the inequality that exists in people who have resources and those who don't. And there was a big difference, right? And so, I had a drive to balance that inequality in society in whatever way that I could. And for me, the interest was medicine. So, when I went into medicine, even during med school and undergrad, I always viewed myself as someone who wanted to utilize medicine to close that inequality that existed in healthcare.
So you were in a relationship. It happened to be, you said inclusive because you're Pakistani, the person happened to be Indian. Their family was very welcoming, but you saw money. You saw what luxury is. You saw when you have means and resources, how much better your life can be. So that was part of the motivation. And a lot of people, who go into the medical profession, like, no, it was really to serve people. That was the only reason. But look, the extrinsic motivation and the motivation of living a better life is part of the equation, right?
Absolutely. Look, I just like everyone, we all want to give the resources that we can to our children and to help us get more situated and more established as our generations continue, right? I mean, we want that growth, we want that legacy, and that's extremely important. That was a big part of why I'm into medicine as well. But the other part is that it gave me the ability to impact our society and our communities.
So you went to med school, you're an ER physician, you're doing great. You find somebody who's of the same culture, also bright. Your parents are ecstatic. that you found
Yeah.
somebody who's also Pakistani, and but there was a pivot. There's, what I know about you, and also from this conversation, you played the long game. Your parents played the long game. Look, stay the course, you said, stick with something, and you plan. But you're planning all this long term, but life throws curveballs at you. So what happened
Yeah.
with you?
Yeah, I know, probably the biggest curveball in my life at that time, and it taught me a lot. Taught me, and you helped me get through it, and I appreciated that. And so yeah, so look, we went through med school, and I was in med school, and I met someone like you said, uh, fit the mold that my parents wanted, right? Pakistani, Muslim, educated, from Karachi, families from Karachi. It's like, whoa, this is like
Yeah.
check, 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 check.
Yeah.
And we got married, and I think uh, we struggled through our marriage. I was in residency as well, but we were just different people. And I think for both of us, we both of our parents were probably trying to fit us into this mold, and that's what at that
And you were
time, right?
young
Look,
when you got married. What were
I
you
was
like?
gonna say, like, I was very young. I was, 23 or 24 or something when I got married. And also the other part is, like, when I met this person, we had been in the country for, I don't know, 12 years, right? Which is nothing if you think about it as an immigrant. And so you are in a bubble, right? And you are taught to stay in the bubble. If you deviate from that bubble, meaning of like hanging out with these, you don't hang out with people who are not from your culture because they may corrupt you, or et cetera, right?
Yeah.
And so it gives you this very narrow environment to grow up in. And so I thought this is great. It fits everything in the mold, and so let's get married. And so we had some trouble in the early parts of our marriage, and even before we got married, we were having trouble. And things didn't work out. We went our separate ways. We had two kids, beautiful kids, who are much older now, and we ended up we had separation in 2006, and then we finally got divorced in 2000, I don't know, 12 or 13 or something like
So
that.
you find yourself in this situation where life isn't going according to plan, and then you're single.
Yeah.
And you find yourself dating again.
Yeah.
And you have two kids at this point. You're juggling that. You're juggling a career, which is on an upward trajectory because you're hardworking and you're capable. Tell me about that time where you found yourself single again.
So I found myself single twice, right? Because in 2006, I think that was the much more impactful part. Was in 2006, we separated, and I was single, and I didn't know what to do because again, you're taught that divorce and separation does not occur in our
Not
culture.
part of the picture.
Not
Yeah.
part of the picture. Like you feel like a failure at that point. I felt like a failure. I felt like everything was sort of crumbling around me, and just personally, it was depressing, right? And mostly, I think it was because I felt like I failed at something for the first time in my life. Everything in my life, I've been able to control and do well in, right? Education, everything. But that relationship, it was out of my control, I felt like, and it was just a moment of failure for me. And so, you helped me with a lot of this and through this, right? And so, look, I finally, it was very important lessons learned during the time. Probably the most important one was you can't control everything in your life, right? And you gotta adapt very quickly and think of the long game, and things will get better.
And then there were the dating apps.
And then there were the dating apps. The dating apps helped, especially when you're a doctor and you're out of residency and you've got financial security and you're in New York City.
You got people swiping right for you all the time.
It was crazy. So when I in like late 90s, when I met my ex-wife in 1997, there was no dating apps. You went to a bar. Well, you went to a bar or whatever, and a restaurant, you were through friends, and you met people like that. And then all 2006 is like, what is this Match.com and OkCupid and all these things? And wild, right? It's wild.
Now they have some Desi apps too.
yeah, now it's crazy. Now it's
Yeah.
crazy. And so at that time though, I remember, going through this and I was like, man, is this like you almost felt ashamed to be on the app,
Mm.
right? You're like, man, I hope no one finds me on this app, like that I know, so I won't put a picture up. But now obviously it's like everybody does it, and that's the way to do it. But yeah, the apps were well, they were great. And yeah, so look, that whole experience taught me a lot, and a lot of the lessons that I learned during that period of my life have shaped every part of my life now, including my success at work, right? And just understanding that things cannot be controlled. You do the best that you can, and yeah, hope for the best. And it's okay. It's okay to be out of control sometimes because complex problems you are mostly out of control, right?
Yeah.
And you have to stay the course and think the long game.
Yeah. And then out of that chaos came something great. You met your lovely wife, Kelly.
Yeah. Yeah, and so 2000, if I get this year right before Kelly kills me, but 2013 or 14. And the funny thing is, she doesn't remember either. Like both of us are that kind of stuff just doesn't even like.
Sometimes that's a good sign because
Yeah. We don't. I mean, listen,
life is fun. You're rolling with it, and then
I think we've been together for like 10 years. It's funny we keep like 10 years, 9 years. I don't know, but it seems like I don't. It seems like nothing, right? It seems like such a short period of time.
Yeah.
But it's 2000, I think 13 or 14. We met and really like we're like, all right, this probably it's great. We're dating. Both of us. She had been divorced, and she had Haley, who at that time I think was 8, and I had Saf and Seha, who were Saf was like 2.5, and Seha was not 10. So maybe Haley was 9, but and we didn't introduce the kids at all. At this time, we were just like, listen, we have some commonalities. Let's go out, have fun, and then we just kept, obviously, that relationship matured. And next thing you know, the kids are meeting. And then she met my mom and dad, which was a really funny story. So she was over my house, and I had a brownstone, and she was coming down from the staircase. And my parents were like, just used to come like any day, right? Anytime they would just, I give them a key, like they would just walk in. I was like, all right. So I didn't expect them to walk in though, but so they just walked in. So I come down, we're upstairs, and I hear the door opening, and my mom and dad are like, hey, beta, we're here. Like, and they're like yelling at each other. I'm like, oh crap, like, man, I'm already here. And so we come down the stairs. I come down the stairs first, and my dad and my mom, I tell my mom about Kelly. My mom, as you know, was an unbelievable woman who was way ahead of her time, I think. And she was just very inclusive, very accepting, progressive thinker. And so her and I had a very, very close relationship. And so I had told her about Kelly. Never met her though, right? And so Kelly comes down, and my mom's like, oh, gets a big smile on her face, right? My mom's super happy to meet Kelly. And then my dad pulls me aside. He's like, yeah, babysitter. I'm like, oh man. And so I was like, Dad, like we'll talk later. And Kelly sort of met them. My dad was still totally clueless. And but that was the first time they met. And listen, I'll tell you, like, my parents both passed in 2020. And Kelly, my dad went through a really difficult period, and she was there throughout the entire time next to him. In fact, she was the first one there when he passed, and so they had a very special bond at the end of it. And again, like that period of my life has taught me the same thing: is I don't assume things, right? Give people credit, because I did not think my dad would ever be okay with any of this.
Yeah.
And here he was. Now, credit to Kelly too, right? Big credit to Kelly.
Absolutely.
He converted to Islam, right? And mainly because, look, are we religious? No, but mainly it was because
your parents,
how important it was to my parents. Very important. And she went, her sisters came, and we went to the mosque where my dad was a big part of. The imam that he wanted, got done the way he wanted, and gave him that sense of comfort. And so anyway, so look, that taught me a lot of things as well. And I never underestimate anyone anymore.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
for Kelly, what was the biggest thing that she had to get used to in terms of being married to a Desi man? What is it about you that's Desi that she was like, oh, all right, I'm gonna have to get used to this? Was there anything?
Yeah, not much, right? So I was always it's interesting. That's a good question. I actually would like to bring more desiness out. I was always known as the coconut, right? That's what my friends in high school used to even call me. And because, a lot of my life I struggled with like the mold that my parents wanted me to be in. And then I just didn't believe in being in molds because I think that you have to interact with every culture, every religion has something to be taught. Like I believe, have some things that are not great in our religion and our culture, and some that are fabulous. And same exists for everybody. And so
Kind of like your mom's mindset, be inclusive.
Be inclusive.
Yeah.
And so I never, so they used to call they used to call me the coconut, right? Because I was brown on the outside, white on the inside. So when you ask that question, it's a really good question. Once in a while, I'll start playing like a little Coke studio, and then start doing a little Bhangra dancing.
And you can get into your Bollywood when you need to.
Dude, totally. And remember when we got married in Nicaragua, right? Kelly and I got married in Nicaragua, which you were part of. And that DJ.
That's right. Playing
the DJ, we made him play the Bhangra, and we were doing a little Bhangra. But that kind of stuff. She loves it, right? She embraces. She's like me. She embraces every culture, everybody. I mean, it's just.
I remember us in New York City going to a Bollywood night like 4 years ago. Kelly was Bollywood dancing like nobody's business. You and her.
Yeah, so, everybody was looking at it like, "What the heck is this blonde-haired person doing in this?" I remember that. And just another, by the way. And her and I just went back to Pakistan, right? We went to Karachi. And while she was 7 months pregnant, right? And I hadn't been back there in 25 years or so. And yeah, like all that stuff she doesn't let that bother her at all.
So speaking of going to Pakistan, Mansoor, look, you've been back for other reasons by yourself on missions to help people, whether it was the earthquake or the floods. Tell me a little bit about that, and tell me about the missions that you go on to help people, the medical missions, and why you spend so much of your time doing that.
Yeah, again, so going back to the roots of high school and sort of realization of inequities in various parts of our society. I think one of the biggest inequities is healthcare, and I just don't. I believe healthcare should be free and it should be equal to everyone in our country, and we have to obviously figure out how to provide that. But that, I think, healthcare inequity is just drastic in other parts of the world, and so I'm lucky because Envision, right, which was a company that I work for, and our CEO is very supportive of doing work around the world. And so one of the things that I stood up with his help was the Global Health Initiative. And we get funding and we send clinicians to various parts of the world. So right now, for example, it started off with just going to Dominican Republic, and then it expanded to the Dominican Republic, Honduras, Jordan, Pakistan, and Zimbabwe. So this year we're doing all those missions. We've got 2 missions going. We've got just in the fall, we've got missions going to Dominican Republic, Honduras, and then 2 to Jordan and 1 to Zimbabwe. So yeah, we got 5 missions going. Total of probably roughly 100 clinicians going out and doing.
And what do you do at the missions when you get there? What do you do?
Yeah, so it depends on where we're going. And by the way, it's all funded through the foundation through Envision Healthcare. And so in the Dominican Republic, for example, we go out, we work with an organization called One World Surgery, phenomenal organization. And they're setting up a hospital in the Dominican Republic, and they're going to start doing surgeries there. And our teams go out and into the towns and take care of the population in the Haitian population that is in the Dominican Republic. Interestingly, in Dominican Republic, you can't just even if you're born in the Dominican Republic, you are not a citizen. So you could be third generation, born in the Dominican Republic, but because you were born to someone who maybe migrated illegally, you are not recognized. So you have generations of people who cannot work, right? You're not legal, you can't work. And so they put them to work in sugarcane fields, et cetera. And so they don't get health care. And so we go out there, we bring a lot of medicines. We've helped them set up a ongoing primary care clinic. So we'll see a lot of primary care out there, treating things like diabetes, high blood pressure, giving out glasses, and then they're setting up surgical centers. In Honduras, we also work with One World Surgery, and they've set up operating rooms, and we send our anesthesiologists and CRNAs and surgeons to do various surgeries. There's a backlog of a year of people waiting to get surgeries there, and so we send our teams there to get surgeries done. In Pakistan, with the recent floods that occurred, we helped fund and distribute simple things like antibiotics and just taking care of population in Swat Valley. There's a women's and children clinic there, working with an awesome organization out there called CDRS, who are doing some great work. And we took care of every day. I mean, listen, it's rigorous. It is hard work.
The one run by Todd Shea, right? Who you and I know.
Right. That's right. Okay. Yeah. They do some amazing work. You're seeing 400 patients a day, right? Which is unheard of here. You're doing the best that you can. It's rigorous work. But I think it's impactful. And I think, it really, as clinicians going there, the ones that go there really feel like they're getting a lot more out of it than they're giving back.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then in Jordan, we're working with the Syrian refugees. We're working with Imana, another organization, and we're working with Syrian refugees that are in camps in Jordan.
That is amazing work. The impact is, it's just magnificent. And how you grew this thing over the course of time. How long did it take you to go from just one mission to the 4 or 5 today?
3 years, but of course, look, it's not just me, right? There's a whole team behind me that does it. In fact, I don't do much of it. I just, they're doing the grunt the work, and the funding is essential. And but it took about 3 years. We started in 2021. And it also aligns with all the burnout that's occurring right now in healthcare, and clinicians need to get back to the purpose and the intent of what drives them to be clinicians, and for all of us, right? It's like I always get back to purpose. We all have to determine our purpose in life and our intent in life, and then work on the execution, and then think of it as a long game, right? I always tell my kids, like, you got to figure that out. For me, it's helping our communities and helping everyone around us, because at the end of it, and listen, it's not just altruistic, it's self-serving, because the way I see it is, if I help my communities and everyone around us and close that inequality, it helps me, right? Because I'm a lot happier when I'm around people.
It absolutely does. So, there's all this talk about happiness, pursue happiness. I think satisfaction and internal intrinsic motivation, and going back to purpose, that gives someone the opportunity to live a higher quality of life. So happiness is an emotion, goes up and down, but satisfaction, that gratification that you get from serving others, plenty of research to suggest that really lifts the quality of life for yourself. So very insightful there that you do it for others, but really you get a lot of benefit for yourself as well in terms of your own growth and sense of satisfaction. You know, I really am curious about what's next for you. You've done a lot of things. These medical missions have been a big part of your life for the past 3 years. What's next?
Yeah. So, the next chapter of my life, I would love to be in a place where I'm financially stable and I'm able to independently support a lot of these missions and the work that we're doing internationally. But just locally, there's a lot of healthcare inequalities, right? And so my hope is that I would get into some sort of public service and maybe on the state level or the national level, and get into government work and really impact policies that are affecting larger populations. So we'll see. We'll see where it takes us.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great fit for you based on who you are and where you've been. Are there some policies that come to mind that you really want to dig into?
Man, I don't want to get into look, I again, my intent would be to close that the healthcare inequities
gap.
It obviously is healthcare is a very complex problem that we have to solve.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I do believe that all of us have to come to an understanding. Either we're a society that is okay with letting people just crumble and die, or just have a lot of morbidity, or are we a society that thinks of healthcare as something as basic as water and food? To me, it's something as basic as water and food. And the current environment, people argue like, well, the federal government does have certain laws that are in place, specifically EMTALA, which ensure that safety net. Yeah, well, the problem is that it's an unfunded mandate by the government. And so people get so caught up in, the haves and have not, and I don't want to pay for healthcare for someone. But what they don't understand is, at the end of the day, we're all paying. We are just all paying, whether unless we as a society say, you know what, I don't care if that person dies. And I don't think we're that society. I just don't believe that. I think we are a caring society, and I believe that we all want to do good and care about those around us, and it's a matter of how we get there. So it'll be complex, but more to come.
More to come. And, I'm sure you're going to do well and make an impact on whatever you set your eyes on. So good luck to you in your next chapter, Mansoor. And thanks so much for spending time with me today.
Appreciate it. Thank you.